there, it's Leslie here. Today I want to talk to you about conquering the guilt trip. Sometimes we're easily manipulated by others when our guilt buttons are too sensitively set. Recently someone asked me, why did it take me 50 years to wire up enough courage to stand up for myself? She said, I've always put everyone else's needs first. And when I didn't, I felt guilty, like I was a bad person. Like somehow I was being selfish. Now I understand that I've only enabled my husband's selfishness to flourish all these years. Don't beat yourself up. From a young age, many women are trained to give, to go along, and not hurt anyone's feelings at all costs. Be nice, we're told, or people won't like you. And so we've learned to please, to placate, and pretend in order to not make waves and just to keep the peace. Passivity and dependence seem to be the biblical definition of a gentle and quiet or feminine spirit. And when some of us tried to step out of that definition, and maybe being more bold or assertive, many of us started to feel guilty. Our second key point is the manipulator's goal is to control your feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. They want to get what they want, regardless of what it costs you. And often they use multiple strategies, but one of the most common is the guilt trip. Here are a few examples and see if you can relate. Now remember, the manipulator's goal is to make you feel guilty for having your own feelings, your own needs, your own thoughts, your own opinions, your own desires, especially if they clash with his. If you don't sign for this loan, I'm going to lose my business, it'll be all your fault. Now, of course, he's been irresponsible with his business accounts, not tracked spending or receipts very well, but now that he's in a jam, it's all your fault because you won't bail him out by signing on the loan. Or you're selfish because you won't do it or give him a yes. How about this one? Well, Donna's husband says she doesn't mind that he has professional friends with other women. What's wrong with you? In other words, you're paranoid, insecure, immature, wrong, selfish for having your feelings and not wanting your husband to go to lunch with other women. How about this one from your teenager? Well, Mom, everyone else can go to the party. Why do you have to be so controlling? Your teenager is trying to make you feel guilty about yourself for being a concerned mother and by labeling you as controlling. It makes you second guess your decisions because you don't want to be controlling, or you would feel guilty if you thought you were. You're just trying to be a good mom. Or how about this one? Well, I guess I'll manage if you can't come over to help me today, but I don't know how. In other words, if I need you now, my needs trump your agenda. And if you say no to me, then I will make you feel bad about yourself for making that choice. Or how about this one? Well, I thought you loved or cared about me. I guess I was wrong. The lie is, if you really love me, then you'd do what I want. You wouldn't have any boundaries or put any consequences in place. Now, as we've talked about before in all of our Conquer videos, awareness is always the first step of change. But you're not going to change the person doing the manipulating. Our key point number 3 is you're going to have to change you. Because manipulation is only effective if it works to control you. Therefore, you must begin to identify what's hooking your guilt button and get unhooked. Now, usually the glue that keeps us stuck in the guilt trip are the lies we believe and the fears we have. And so let's take a look at some of the lies. Because we live under this lie that a good Christian should always put other people's wants and needs ahead of their own. And oftentimes, especially as women, we're overly accommodating to others and repeatedly cave in to what other people want because we believe a lie, that if we say what we need or feel or think or like, we're sort of being selfish. But that's not true. It's not selfish to know who you are or what you want. Actually, that's healthy. Selfishness is demanding that you always get what you want or that other people always put you first. In the same way, when someone else demands it of you, they're being selfish and disrespectful of your personhood. And when you always give in and give them what they want, you enable their selfishness to grow. Not a good thing, especially when you live with this person. Now, Jesus knew who he was. And because of his strong identity that came from the Father and who God said he was not easily manipulated when people wanted him to do the things that the Father did not call him to do. Nor was he derailed when other people defined him as crazy or demon-possessed. One of the things that happens when we try to speak up or put our own needs out there is that a manipulator will often attempt to make us feel like we're doing something wrong if we don't always put their needs or their wants ahead of our own. You see, manipulators define love as always doing what I want you to do or what I need you to do. Therefore, if we have a different opinion or we have a different need or want or feeling, we're told we're unloving, we're unspiritual, or even unsubmissive. And then the guilt button goes off because, of course, we don't want to be unloving or unsubmissive or unspiritual. Of course, that's wrong. Our fears often come out of being too nice, You see, many of us enjoy being a giver. We like making people happy and taking care of other people's needs. We get real satisfaction, and our self-esteem and self-worth often comes from doing for others. However, when we don't have a clear sense of who we are and good boundaries, manipulators sense this in us and exploit it to their own advantage. Maybe when you were a little girl, you were sort of groomed to be manipulated because you were so praised for being so wonderful and nice and accommodating. You were so generous and so cute, so sweet, so lovely, so helpful. And all of those things made you feel really good about yourself. So when a manipulator gives you negative feedback about yourself that may not even be true, it pierces you like a sword. Oh my gosh, I'm a bad person. I don't want to be a bad person. I've always been a giving, loving, helpful person. I can't believe they said that about me. And you take it in like a poison pellet, and it makes you feel guilty and shameful and fearful. So then you're easily manipulated because manipulators can use our fears to get us to change our mind. You see, when you're afraid of rejection or afraid people won't like you, if you're less than perfectly giving or perfectly loving or perfectly accommodating, then we cave in to the manipulator to not lose the connection. And so our next key point is to break free from manipulators' power to lay an unnecessary guilt trip on you. Follow these steps. 1, understand that if you say yes to the manipulator when you want to say no, you don't escape negative feelings. If you don't feel guilty for dishonoring your own priorities and needs, you'll actually end up feeling angry and resentful that you gave in to someone just because you were too scared not to. 2nd, understand the purpose of guilt. Now let me give you an example. A smoke alarm has a good purpose. It warns you of the danger of fire, and they're very useful, especially like when you're sleeping and a fire breaks out. But when your smoke alarm starts going off when you burn the toast or open your oven, they become really irritating because they're set too sensitively. In the same way, sometimes our guilt button is set too sensitively. Guilt is a God-given ability to warn us of sin, of our failure to live up to God's law, which is a good thing, so we can be aware and self-correct. But often we start to slip into guilt because we've violated not God's law, but someone else's law for us to live by, such as, thou shalt never disappoint me. Thou shalt always do what I want. Thou shalt always be there for me when I need you and never be busy with anything else. Thou shalt never have any other needs before me, never have any wants or desires that interfere with mine. But when we follow those laws, then who is your God? So the 3rd thing we need to do is to learn to tolerate someone else's negative emotions without caving in. You can be empathetic without being enabling. You see, we all have negative feelings when we don't get what we want. If I were looking forward to lunch with a good friend and she called me and canceled because she had a conflict, surely I would be disappointed. Does that mean she shouldn't have canceled? No, it means I need to deal with my own feelings of disappointment, and I will. In the same way, when you say no to someone, of course they'll be disappointed. I mean, wouldn't you? It's normal. But they will get over it. They won't reject you. Unless, of course, your sole purpose in their life is to cater to their every whim need. And if so, then perhaps you need to rethink the relationship altogether. Because healthy people live in reality. The truth is, when we can't accommodate someone else's desires or needs, they naturally will feel disappointed. That's human. And most people will adjust and get over it. Healthy people know that they don't always get everything they want, even if what they want is good and legitimate. However, when we cannot tolerate someone else's disappointment or disapproval when we say no, then it's going to be much harder for us to say it or have boundaries. And manipulators capitalize on this weakness and use disappointment and disapproval in extreme forms to make us feel bad so that we'll do what they want. So our 4th step is we have to practice tolerating someone else's negative affect, their disappointment, their sadness, or anger without backing down. We do this by showing empathy for their sadness or their hurt, even anger, even though we can't accommodate them, and we don't back down or reverse our decision. For example, if you don't want to be manipulated into saying yes when you want to say no, here's an empathetic statement you can say. I know this is really hard for you to understand, my decision, and you're disappointed and sad, but I hope you'll try to understand that it's not good for me to sign on your loan. Remember, a healthy relationship is characterized by mutuality, reciprocity, and freedom. And if you're in a relationship with someone who regularly uses manipulation, as you get stronger, you can invite him or her into healthy change simply by not allowing yourself to be manipulated. Now, this will create a crisis of sorts in your relationship. Either the manipulator will begin to back down and respect your time, your feelings, your desires, and your needs, or they'll move on to another person who's more easily manipulated. And the last step in not being easily manipulated is center yourself in God and not on other people's opinions. Jesus never was guilty, nor did he feel guilty, but he did disappoint plenty of people. And the Bible tells us the fear of man is a snare. When we're ruled by other people, we will never be free to grow into the person God wants us to be. Live for his approval rather than other people's approval. And when you do that, you are less likely to be manipulated. Until next time.